Well, welcome back, and in today's episode we're going to be talking about the Volkswagen T3. This one here is a 1989 Volkswagen T3, and when it first got released in 1979 it came out with an air-cooled engine. This one here from 1986 onwards, it was also available in a water-cooled motor, and I have the 2.1 litre motor fitted in this VW here right next to me. It also maintained one of the most important characteristics about being a Volkswagen, with the engine featured at the rear of the car. Even though in 1979 initially when the T3 first got released with the new body and design of the car, a little bit further down the track it became water-cooled. Now, even though it became water-cooled, it also became available in a four-wheel drive version, which was an excellent vehicle, codenamed Synchro. Now, the Synchro had a revolutionary engine, and it certainly is a very good car. But by no way and no means is the performance of this car anything like the performance of the 1975 model, which I also own in the far distance over there. Okay, continue on driving the T3. I must say it has handled this highway excellently. And ahead of me I've got an interesting landscape that I'm going to take the car over. I must also tell you that today's content is actually content that's my own personal opinion and views about the Volkswagen T3. Now, furthermore, I'd like to be connected, and one of the best ways to reach me is, in fact, I have an excellent Instagram page, and I know Instagram works really well for me, and you can find me on this side over here on Instagram for more information, where I constantly download photos and images of my fleet of Volkswagen. Certainly one thing that I must tell you is this particular T3 that I have didn't come with all the luxurious appointments that were available in these cars when they were first made at the time. Now, mine is the 1989 model, and it was actually called like a window van at the time. It didn't really have very much inside it, and I mentioned a little bit before that Trakka actually took the car to its hands to the second vehicle manufacturer stage and made it into a camper van, which were sought after cars in the country, and they still are today. Anyway, perhaps we should just take a look at the appointments that my T3 came out with when it was first released at the time. So I'm in the cabin at the moment, and if you just have a look at the dashboard over here, we just got a straight, plain, very cheap dashboard that the car came out with. In fact, it didn't even have that stereo in it when it came. And I've gone behind it and added my own tachometer there, and you can see the cluster in front of me over here. It doesn't really have a great deal there except for a basic temperature gauge. And I must begin today by letting you know about the T3. Immediately when it was released, it was a very well sought after car back in 1979, even when the air-cooled engine was available at the time. And then shortly afterwards, through the 80s, it became available in a water-cooled engine, and then in 1986 it also became available in the water-cooled 2.1 litre motor. But having said all that, the car will definitely not disappoint, and that's why a lot of people immediately wanted to get their hands on one of these cars. Even though the price was very expensive to go out and get one, Volkswagen actually did do a very good job with the engineering and design of this car, which has made it a huge success. Okay, I've just taken a seat in my T3 and I'm in the cabin area at the moment. And on this piece here, I thought I would talk to you a little bit about the engine. And strangely enough, one of the first things you're going to notice about this engine is its noise. Let's fire it up. So, interestingly enough, you will be very surprised about the quietness of this engine. Now, despite all that praise about the T3, I mentioned before that I'd talk a little bit about the engine in this particular car because it did receive substantial criticism from the minute it was made, and many owners were completely annoyed and dissatisfied. They were very unhappy about a number of things, or an array of problems that were of major concern that I think was significant about the T3 engine. Now behind me, I've got a spare block of mine, which is the MV version of that motor. Okay, so in 1991, the T3 Synchro came in front in the Van Halen competition. Actually came out as a 1.9 litre, and then from 1986 onwards it got made into a 2.1 litre water-cooled. So let's get this right. Firstly, I'm talking about the water-cooled motor. I must tell you that the first thing you're going to notice about the VW T3 is that it will not be hurried no matter how hard you stir it along. There are two things about the VW T3 that I'd like to discuss in a few moments. The first is, throughout the 70s and 80s, Volkswagen came up with an excellent concept in the build of the Volkswagens. This walkway from the front of the Kombi to the rear of the Kombi was such an excellent initiative that the VW factory came up with. The second thing is the engine in the T3 is actually coupled to some very good gearboxes. So while the T3 is a very good car in the city driving, it's also an even better car out in the country and on the highway for driving. For instance, the ratios are so well balanced that the T3 does get up and go when you brisk it up, and also the T3 has very good final drive ratios, which in the manual version it sits at about a 4.57, and in the automatic version it sits on about a 4.03 final drive ratio. Earlier on I mentioned in another piece that the engine had suffered significant criticism in the T3 for an array of issues and various problems that many owners had faced with the car, and a lot of people had gone out and done various conversions by fitting a Subaru engine in the T3, and it was assumed that that motor would be a better way and a better choice to go. But the real truth is that the 2.1 litre engine, if it was serviced and maintained properly, it would quite easily do the same thing that the 1.9 litre motor would do and the Subaru 2.5 litre motor would do if it was looked after properly. And it would probably be a cheaper way to go to recondition the original engine if any owner had any major problems with the engine, and it would also remain a Volkswagen as well. Now, just a couple of the mechanical features that the MV motor suffered on the T3. The gaskets, or rubber jackets I would say, that were between the block and the heads, these suffered due to lack of maintenance. One other thing as well, the throttle body housing mechanism wasn't so well built from the factory at the time. So just because people did go out and convert the T3 with a Subaru engine, there's no guarantee that that motor would be a very good one unless you spent thousands and thousands of dollars to ensure that you got a very good Subaru engine to fit in the car, otherwise it wouldn't be so worth it. So in my opinion, going to the hassles of fitting a Subaru engine because people would think that that motor would be the best option to go to is simply not true. Just a word of warning, but T3s are known for leaking petrol from their fuel tanks. Trakka have come up with some very good concepts for the Volkswagen. Now in this layout here I have a sink, I have an awesome stove. Now while the coffee's getting ready, I'm making plans about this particular T3 features a huge pop top. Now I'm around the back of the car now, and the T3 features a huge tail. What a great way to finish a long, busy day. Alex, the first thing you're going to notice about this car is that it is big. Yeah, you see? As well. So, yeah. So much room, like, and then the interest in these is greater than what it was, like 30 years ago. Yeah. I've got 3 Volkswagens, and this one here is a 1989 model. The first thing about this one that you need to know is it's water-cooled as well. It's not standard air-cooled VW. Okay. So immediately when this model got released in 19 79, everybody wanted to get rid of their old models, their T2s, and they wanted to get their hands on a T3, which is this one over here that we're looking at right now. But I must tell you, like, this car's also gone through its second vehicle manufacture, and it was actually refitted by Trakka, and Trakka are Australia's leading recreational vehicle converters, and it's actually become a very, very good well packaged car. You know, like, you've got to realise this is a 32-year-old car, and Trakka have gone right through it and fitted cabinets. It's got a water tank underneath, a kitchen inside, I have a fridge, rock and roll bed, lovely elevating roof. And despite all that praise about the VW T3, there is one disappointment, and that is if you come to the back of the car and you want to have access to the engine, Volkswagen don't have the original lid that the T2 model had. You need to lift all your luggage and your cushions up to get to the engine in this manner here. So here's the engine, just as we speak. One thing I also did do today, I went to visit Shane out at Cartech Automotive over in the next suburb, and I thought I'd ask him a couple of questions about my engine for the T3 in terms of what's involved to recondition the engine. Let's take a listen to what he had to say for us. No, you know what had happened, Shane? From the minute this motor was made, it did receive substantial criticism because of various faults with it, you see. So I guess probably the first thing that I've experienced with it is these you know, thick gaskets over here, you know, on the heads, you know, they leak water.
Yeah, that's just rubber seals, that's all they are. They're not actually gaskets, just rubber. And what happens is, of course, if the coolant gets anyway diluted with anything else, this is what it does, and it starts attacking everything.
Yeah, of course.
The whole lot. And when you pull the heads off, generally you've got to replace the heads. And it's a can of worms, because generally then you've got to pull the barrels out, you've got to reseal them underneath.
Oh, okay, so you'd prefer to have the whole engine out. Is that really what we're talking about here?
Anyway, and you can't ever quote it's a can of worms.
Okay.
You know, you get in the stand and you sort of pull it apart and have a look if there's any head studs that break or anything goes wrong.
The T3 also features another couple of stunning features in it. The first one is it came out with these revolutionary coil springs all around in the suspension. So gone are those horrible old torsion bars that the T2s had. And another thing, if you also had a synchro, it also featured the 6J rims as well. Okay guys, I've taken the radiator out. As you can see, here are the lower pipes. You need to take the... Sunday afternoon, I'm just returning from the Birdwood Auto Museum. But I wanted to have a short chat about one of the fleet of Kombis that I have, and it's actually the one that I'm driving at the moment, and it's the T3. And the first thing you're going to notice about this car is that it is big. One of the greatest aspects about being a T3 owner is that it's a lovely car to take out for your Sunday cruises. Now today I'm in the McLaren Vale region, and if you have a look at the rear of the car, it has a large tailgate over here with lots of room and lots of space. Well guys, thanks very much for watching the show, and I hope you enjoyed it. And you know what, I'd like to stay connected, and you can do this by simply subscribing to my channel, where you can find the rest of my movies, and also feedback helps out. So if you've got anything that you might want to add or include, you can just write me a short note down the bottom where I can take some information on board and make even better and more movies that are much needed for our community.